presentation and start.
Thank you. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
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 Hopefully not my purchase, but the help beyond politics, right?
Yes.
Okay,
good.
thank you, and thank you for setting this up. I'm really looking forward to today. I will try not to talk around as the time is short, but several of the speakers and the participants today were in as a part of this Nordic scenario process, Nordic Health 2030. We also had the label Health Beyond Politics, which I also think fits with what Petter also was saying now, because we have some huge challenges to work with, and the aim here was also towards preventive health going forward. Nordic Innovation was also a part of this work. Just a few words on the Institute. We are over 50 years old. We work globally with scenarios. Of course, we are more popular now than we were half a year ago because nobody knows what's happening in the world and looking at mega trends and trying to reduce complexity. But in the area of health, which I'm heading, we are actually working globally in all regions of the world, and it's you can say that we see some of the same challenges on working with data, but the way we'll address it and apply it will be very different. But it's still something that we need to work with on more than just a Nordic scale. And of course, we have the aim of the Sustainable Development Goals when we think about the long term in this way. So in the Nordics, we also were looking at what are the most important wicked problems, and wicked problems going out with a statement saying that these are challenges that are so big that nobody will solve it alone, but these are also challenges that are ongoing. So there isn't a start and an end date, which is probably one of the reasons why it's so hard to work with inside the public sectors and in collaborations. But we can see an increased human-centric divide between healthcare systems and the individual system, even if this should be on behalf of the citizen. We know that we need to change the focus from sick care to healthcare. The system today is curing, it's not preventing. And the future-proof incentive structure, so what we pay for is mostly sick and not for healthcare. And we see an increased disease burden. We get older, yes, but we get more years with disease, which is one of the stress that we see on the system. Prevention has been on the agenda for many years, maybe several hundred years or thousands of years. But when we look on the allocation of the budget just in the Nordic countries, it's more or less 10% for what we label sick care and 0.3 for healthcare. And of course, there are different ways to see this, but it just shows a little bit on how we spend in the health structure today. And I should just note that there is more money going to administration than to prevention in the healthcare budget. We also learned quite early in this process that we did that just working together on technology when we have an increasing speed on technology development and new ways of working, that's probably not going to work. So we need to base it on some core basic values. And even if we thought that, oh, that's quite easy to pinpoint the 5 Nordic core values, it wasn't that easy. Luckily, Nordic Innovation had worked a bit with it on beforehand, so we took base in that and developed well a bit to be a part of the challenge we saw here, being creativity and innovation, trust, cultivation, or dannelse, Bildung, individual responsibility and solidarity, which is quite specific Nordic, and openness. So one of the big challenges that we have today is how do we work with data? We are also really behind on the social contract because the way we see the social contract is analog, is not digital. So we need to reinvent how we work with the social contract. One of the big questions we see all the time is who controls, who owns the data? Is it the system, the provider, the producer, or is it the individual? And it's not a discussion that will lead to anything that we need. We need to bridge these two ways. We need new data models where the individual and the aggregated play into each other. And one of the questions we put forward to do the whole picture is that ownership of data, which normally means that you will control and interlock it, would probably not lead to the change that we want to have, but to put value on the functions would, so that data can flow more freely is a necessity in it. But we don't have the model, and we also need to find business model for it. In this part, we work a lot with what we call the humanome. We are fastly moving away from only looking at clinical data to looking at what we label as health relevant data, anything that is relevant for you. So we have the clinical data sources. We can look more and more into the biology of yourself, but also what happens around you and on you becomes more and more attainable to look at. And the question here is not can this be harvested, because a lot of companies and institutions are already harvesting this in different ways, but can we do it so it actually benefits the person and the health system or the system in combination, which is a different task. Another bold conclusion that we put forward is that by 2030 we should aim at the 5-5 inspiration, so 5% of the GDP for prevention and 5% for curation, because we will still need to cure as well. But we should stress here that the curation is, of course, both on the promotion and primary prevention, but also how we work with secondary and tertiary prevention, which is still inside the healthcare system. In the end, we would need to refine what is health, and everybody is going towards personalized health, and which could be labeled as precision health and precision public health and evidence-based care for one. And it could just be stated like this: the best possible quality of life and well-being during the lifespan. We also need this change on going from budget years and just disease incidents to look at the lifespan. That will make it much more attractive both for the payers and for providers to invest and look at the whole lifespan for a person and how do you get the most out of it. That requires some changes, but it also requires the mental change that the health budget is not a cost, it's an investment. And it also requires the mental change that is not necessarily the health service that is the goal for the providers, but the quality of life and well-being, which needs to be developed in different ways. In order to take these things on, we need to work with how can we have data working around in the system. Today, in most countries, and also in most of the Nordic countries, probably with an exception of Finland, all the brains go into, say, cybersecurity first. But in reality, we would need to think about safety for the use of data for the individual person first, which would require that we bridge a lot of data sources and have a more free-floating access and interchanging of data across boundaries, and then begin to work around what are then the data security parts of it. And it's also for the individual person, it will be important for me when we have free-floating data that there is a transparency. I know where the data is. New consent models, dynamic consent model, but also traceability, so I can see who uses it and for what with my consent. But there will be parts of data where we are required to deliver in as a part of developing the intelligent self-learning health system, just as with tax records. You can't opt out of the tax records in a country, even if you have consent in a broad sense. And accountability of the state is going to be crucial. It's not so important who provides the service and who does the work, but the accountability needs to be there. We also play into the 2030 vision for Nordic cooperation to have the Nordic region as the most integrated region in the world by 2030. In the magazine, which you can download, we also have a good interview with Paula Lehtomäki on this vision with big endorsement. WHO Europe was also in the work. The Digital Health Europe part was also in the work and also uses a lot of both the content and the conclusions in order to develop the European digital health frame from their point of view. So I think that I only used 10 minutes. Maybe I talk too fast. But these are more or less the words on it. I would just put on some additional words in concern of that. I think it's very, very important that we think Nordic. There's no way we're going to solve this inside the country frames. I'm extremely disappointed with responses on COVID, not especially from the Nordic countries, but from all countries, that it became a quest of going back to the city-state. So secure the city-states, you had to secure or you defend against enemies and secure food. And now this just became about securing some things that you needed. Of course, you needed that. So we need to go beyond this part. But I will also stress that the Nordic countries have the best circumstances to actually develop the third way of how to work with health data, and also be a part of developing this in the European Union or in Europe. And that's not something that will be given to us just because we know we are very good. That's a task and a responsibility we have to take. And I think that is the responsibility of the Nordic countries on developing the future of health. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bogi. Interesting presentation. We have a couple of minutes before Svein Berg and Nordic Innovation is to present. Are there any questions to Bogi now immediately after his presentation? He will also be available for the panel discussion later. So you can raise your hand if you have any questions. And in the meantime, Svein, you can make yourself ready and start to share at least. Bogi, just a remark on your comment on the COVID situation. I observed the same, and that's why the intro was about, or I mentioned these oxygen masks. Everybody got very concerned about their own situation and whether they were capable of handling the situation or not. So what do you think of the new research initiatives that were at least on a very high level with the WHO initiated? Do you find them to be irrelevant or sort of very hasty put together? Yeah.
Yes. No, I don't find them irrelevant, but I find the responsibility that probably everybody that's in this meeting today, because you are stakeholders in this area, would need to help with. So we have had an extreme opening and understanding of the need for use of data, which, for instance, me and you, Petter, we have had a lot of discussions with different stakeholders. There was no understanding until the COVID. So that's good. We have had a lot of fast innovation and some private-public and private-private and public-public partnerships. That's also very good. But 95% what has been put on the market are emergencies structures. It's not a sustainable long-term structure. So one thing is the financial side. The other thing is the ethics and the legals and how do you protect the individual, which is not really taken into account. And if we want a long-term structure, if it doesn't protect the individual, just like we have ethics for medicine, you should do good and you should not do harm. We are trying to do good, but nobody is thinking about the harm part. And people will not share data long term if there's no benefit for them. And in addition, there's a risk for harm. So one thing is the ethical thing that we need to take into consideration. The other thing is the logic of, do we really want to succeed in this? We need to take on this responsibility. And I think most of us are in a position in our daily work where this is a small corner we can push and we should push going forward. It will not be anything that somebody solves alone, not WHO, but it's something everybody needs to push in order to get solved.
Thank you very much. I see that there's one hand raised. Not sure, Truls Korsgaard, did you raise your hand during this presentation? It looks like it's been up a while.
No, I didn't. So
okay, then we'll just lower your hand and we'll leave the word to Svein Berg, head of Nordic Innovation. You can share your presentation now, Svein, and go ahead.
Thank you, Petter. I'm not going to use any presentation. I will just be using the time speaking. And thank you for the initiative to organize this webinar, and thank you for inviting me to give an intervention here. I think it's a very good idea to summarize and go through the status now with the summit just ahead of us. First, a few words on Nordic innovation. What kind of body are we? We are owned by the 5 Nordic governments through the Nordic Council of Ministers. Our end is to make the Nordics a front runner when it comes to sustainable development through enhancing innovation, entrepreneurship, and strengthen competitiveness among Nordic businesses. To follow up on this assignment, we launch and support activities and projects among Nordic businesses. For us, a Nordic project is where representatives from 3 or more countries are participating. The Nordic governments have chosen to give us a 4 years assignment through a so-called cooperation program. The current program runs from 2018 and out 2021. The cooperation program doesn't single out or give us a special priority to any specific industry. What we did then was to define our strategy, we investigated what the national innovation agencies are prioritizing. And we know that based on their analysis, they have identified where are the national strengths. In addition, 2 years ago, we met with more than 100 representatives from all Nordic countries. In this process, we work to identify where the Nordic countries have a complementary strength, meaning where are we different and where does it make sense to work together. Our conclusion was that within health, demography, and quality of life, this was identified as one of 3 areas which we saw that we could have a common interest in working together. To avoid spreading our resources too wide, we decided that we would spend more than 70% of our resources in 3 areas, which we developed into programs. In total, more than 60 million Norwegian kroner to each of the programs during the 4 years. In addition, we have for the last years also managed the Prime Minister's initiative called the Nordic Welfare Solution, which was finalized last year. This has been one of the Nordic Prime Minister's common initiative to follow up on the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. With this as a backdrop, we have supported several initiatives focusing on bridging Nordic health data as part of Health, Demography and Quality of Life program. The scenario process we have supported, which you just heard Bogi present. We have also organized 3 hackathons in 3 Nordic countries. Unfortunately, we have had to postpone 2 of them due to the corona situation. We have also supported the interoperability project. We have organized and financed a legal overview, which will be presented by Deloitte later on. We are also in dialogue with a group on a project labeled Nordic Digital Medication Platform. I'm very pleased to inform you that we are going to be very supportive to this initiative. The reason why Nordic innovation prioritize health is both because health is essential for the quality of lives in the Nordics, but it also represents a huge business potential. In the Nordics, we spend today close to 10% of our GDP, as you heard Bogi present, and almost everything is going to treatment. And this is going to further develop in the coming years. For instance, the Statistics Norway has estimated that Norway is going to spend 25% of its GDP on health in 2060 if we use the same model as today. This is not economic sustainable, and we need, therefore, to shift focus on preventive health. And if we are to find new models and develop new solutions, we need to have data sets from the population of a certain size. Together, we are 27 million inhabitants in the Nordics, both as a market, but also for innovation and research. This is a more robust number compared to the size of each of the Nordic countries. The rationale for Nordic cooperation is also underlined by the fact that we have, to a large extent, the same governmental health system with universal access for the whole population. So it makes it easier to work together and find solutions together. What now? What are we going to prioritize for the next years? We plan, among others, to follow up on the report on legal overview with both a use case and a business case, in addition to other initiatives. The Nordic Prime Ministers decided last June on a new vision for the Nordics. By 2030, the Nordic region is to be the most integrated and sustainable region globally. As a way of following up on this, the Ministers for Businesses and Industries have for the next 4 years high ambitions for life science and health technology. The budget is not finalized yet, but the estimate is that 25 million Danish kroner will be set aside to this initiative. In addition, the Nordic Council of Ministers has set aside a sum which will prioritize sector crossing initiative. Also here is the Nordic digital infrastructure on health data, a hot candidate for a substantial budget. So my guesstimate today, and I'm not going to give any promises, but I hope for a budget north of 50 million Danish kroner for the next 4 years to support life science and Nordic data-driven innovation and business development. We look forward to continue the dialogue with the industry during the coming months in making plans for life science, health tech, and Nordic digital infrastructure more operational. I think I stop here and I thank you for the attention.
Thank you very much, Svein. Interesting news that you are announcing here, both in terms of money, which is significant, of course, and also projects. We're happy to hear about that. Are there any questions to Svein and Nordic Innovation and how they are supporting the vision now up to 2030? I see that Michel Silvestri, you raised your hand.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for your presentation. I'm curious about what you mentioned about the Nordic digital medication platform. If I've understood it correctly, it's about accreditation of healthcare apps or similar. Could you please elaborate a little bit on that? Thank you.
I guess I could, but I think it's more relevant that those who are the owners of that initiative, Petter among others, could elaborate on that. What I announced today was that we will be supportive to the initiative, and we hope to enter into a contract shortly, and also before the summer. Petter, would you like to elaborate on it?
Sure. Like I said, that was a very sort of, did I hear what I heard? Very, very nice to hear. Maybe Anders, the project manager of Nordic Interoperability Project, maybe you could elaborate a bit on this project and what it is that Nordic Innovation is looking to support.
Sure. This Nordic Digital Medical Health Platform is a platform where we've taken some inspiration from a solution that the UK already have put in place, where they then have an accreditation platform for digital health apps. As the situation is today, then when you develop a health app, you put it on any kind of health library like Google Play or Apple App Store. And some of the apps are really good, some of the apps are not so good, but there's no kind of accreditation. No one is telling you whether or not it's good or bad. The UK have put in place an accreditation system run by the NHS, where they approve those apps that have some health value and guide the users by those apps, and then also set up a platform for those apps that have been approved. Based on that, we have then applied for and planned for a project, a Nordic-wide project, because we know that this is of great interest to all the Nordic countries. But no one has really put an accreditation platform in place. So we see this, as we are working cross-Nordic, as a great potential of doing something on a Nordic-wide basis from day one. So that's what we have put into the project plan and the application, and what we will then now, given then the input from Svein and the contract, we'll start working on. So we will contact anyone who will be interested in approving and distributing approved healthcare apps in the Nordics from tomorrow, I guess.
Very good. Was that an answer to your question, Michelle? I guess so.
Thank you.
Very good. Any other questions to Svein? If not, I think we are ready for the next speaker. And I'm very proud to present the head of Microsoft Health and Life Sciences in EMEA, Elena Bonfiglioli, to talk about data sharing and with perhaps a Nordic perspective. Elena? We can't hear you at the moment.
You should be able to hear me now. And
yes, we are. Thank you very much.
Can you also see my screen?
Just a minute ago, we did see your screen. Maybe you could try to share it again.
I will share it again. So I'm really pleased to be here with you today. And I think, first of all, let me say it's a fantastic initiative. And the idea of putting the emphasis on data sharing and data collaboration is possibly the most powerful way to drive better health, but also to get to a more sustainable and resilient healthcare landscape for the Nordics, for the whole of Europe, and ideally globally. So what I wanted to share with you is, first of all, where Microsoft looks at data collaboration as a strategic asset for innovation in healthcare, and then reflect on why the Nordics could really be this cluster of excellence and of innovation, and ideally be a North Star really for the way forward, for what's next in terms of healthcare sustainability. I hope you can see my screen in the meantime now.
Yes.
Fantastic. So as a background, I wanted to maybe share the fact that back in April, actually really in the midst of COVID, Microsoft took a very bold stab and announced the introduction of the Open Data Campaign, really hoping to close the digital divide. As an optimism, that I, as an optimist person, I wanted to actually shift the gear and say it's not only to close the data divide and the data gap, but also to highlight the opportunity that data do generate in terms of innovation. But the idea was that really we wanted to make we wanted to make sure that data were as usable as possible for organizations of all sizes, but also to really give the tools to extract data dignity, so to make sure that the utility of data could be used in new ways with new business models that were specific to the healthcare and other industries, of course. Because when we think about the way in which data are used today, is definitely on the business model of advertising, for example. But there are many more ways in which data can save life, and data can come to the fruition of the new needs of collaboration within the healthcare industry. So there is a lot of ingenuity that we need to bring to this opportunity, and that needs to come to life in new ways. In fact, when we look at the healthcare industry, really, the healthcare industry is signaling a new need for collaboration. We have Mikko here, and the work that he has done in Finland in terms of creating an ecosystem view around Helsinki and Uusimaa Hospital way of handling data in the data lake, but also really making sure that we shift from a siloed view of healthcare data sets into an integrated view. And on top of that, as we reason over data, we really make sure that there is an ecosystem of partners and innovators. Similarly, we see some of that cardiovascular innovation happening, and I'll touch on that in a minute, but across the world, in Germany, new types of collaborations that really bring together medtech companies, startups and foundations, providers with tech partners in ways that were unprecedented and were really unthinkable before. And so here I was reflecting on the fact of a Nordic healthcare collaboration. Is that a way forward for really what's next and what's new in healthcare, and what would that entail? And particularly, you know, how could we imagine even a data collaborative coming to be the future of the Nordic way of doing healthcare? Here, as part of the campaign, we have been mapping some of the data collaboratives or the data sharing initiatives that are existing globally. So this is part of a report that we actually launched in December and that I'm happy to share with you. Not all of these are fully data collaborative end-to-end, but there are definitely, there is a clear intent, there is an interest, there is an understanding that if we do not collaborate on data, if data are not more open, more shareable, more interoperable, we're going to be stuck when it comes to innovation. So I was wondering if, you know, as part of the Open Data campaign, we launched a first data collaborative in cardiovascular. But could the Nordic be the next data collaborative? And so that would be a great question in terms of what would that entail. When we think about the work that we have done over the last few months on cardiovascular, we brought together actually Novartis Foundation, Koala Life, proudly Nordic, Apollo Hospital, and Microsoft to really look at existing toolkits and AI risk scores in cardiovascular, and how to use those tools on available data sets that this organization would look to bring together, particularly starting from some of the data registries of Novartis Foundation. So what we discovered very quickly is that the tools, you know, from data sharing agreements to data interoperability to data discoverability to some of the ways in which the data collaborative collaborates are all new ways of doing innovation together. And therefore, there is no charted avenue for that. So when we think about what is the way for the Nordics and why the Nordics would be the ideal test bed for this type of data collaboration, I had 4 or 5 things that I was reflecting on. There is no other region that has the clarity of vision, as it was already stated, 2030 as the vision for more sustainable and integrated region in the world. That cannot happen, of course, without a more sustainable and resilient healthcare. The collaboration across the ministries of health is a unique asset that you can definitely bring to bear in terms of asking the question, can the next wave of collaboration in healthcare be data-driven? Secondly, there is no other region that has the same track record in tech innovation across the various countries. Can that tech innovation track become a health tech innovation track. The 27 million citizens, often we say that rare diseases, because the data sets are so small, right, need the imperative of data collaboration. Similarly, when you think about the scale that you have from a population standpoint, when you bring those data together, they can become a very strong reference pool, but also a reference pool that could be of interest for the world looking at the Nordics. Another key element of why the Nordics could be really the next best data collaborative to learn from is the quality benchmark that you are globally as a set of countries in terms of not only the welfare that is the foundation of the healthcare in the Nordics, but also the quality of care and the excellence of the organizations that you bring together. So all these elements make me think that it would be a fantastic idea to say Nordic data collaboration. Microsoft, as part of the open data campaign, has put forward the ambition of stewardship, nurturing 20 data collaboratives, not only in healthcare. Could the Nordics one be one of those? There are certain toolkits, assets, support that we bring to bear. For example, we have done a lot of work on the data sharing agreements, and that is something that Matthias has already shared with some of you, and we would love to do more. We've done a lot of work in data interoperability, with starting with FHIR APIs and embracing FHIR as the interoperability standard within the core and the heart of our cloud. There is some of the work done in making sure that privacy innovation, is it in the form of differential privacy? Is it in the form of federated learning, decentralized identity, privacy preserving contact tracing protocols, and all of that, all those new tools that enhance privacy and therefore enable data collaboration are things that are imperative for anyone that works in data sharing. And we have definitely taken that at heart in our work. If you make a parallel, not to say that it is the same thing, but if you think about the work that the world of tech, and Microsoft particularly, has done in open source, right? There's been a lot of learnings from that. There is a parallel between code and data when you think about openness, when you think about interoperability, right? So let's try to take the lessons learned from that open source movement in terms of coding, and how do you transpose that in terms of data-driven collaboration. And I would personally, I would say, first of all, thank you for taking up a very bold mission, ambition. We stand ready to help. Is it within the tools of the Open Data Campaign? Is it with some of the work that we are blessed to do with several of you? Matthias is our Nordic champion. I would say that's the best way I can describe him. And many of you know him. But between me, him, and the Microsoft team across the Nordics, and the work that we are honored to do with the customers, would really love to think about what I would call the next wave for Nordic data collaboration, and would love to see that becoming a reality, and even, putting it as an opportunity for the ministries of health to collaborate upon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Helena.
Hopefully there are questions.
Yes, let's hope there are questions. I'm sure it sounds like there's an echo sometimes on my voice, so I was insecure here. Was there a question? Please raise your hand if you have any questions to Helena after her presentation here.
I see Bob has a question.
Yes, I see Bob has a question. So please go ahead, Bob.
I'm a big fan of the report that you guys have done. I think that's really the next generation outlook for healthcare.
Okay, thank you very much. I also really appreciate your approach to it, and this is why I have this question. What I see is hard for us to get in is how do we get this dynamic private-public partnership, and also the private role of national or local companies with international companies. Mm-hmm. I see this as a need, but I have a hard time understanding how we get the first ball rolling on it. So if you just have a few words on it.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
So I do see that collaboration as uncharted territory, but at the same time I see it as non-negotiable. I mean, the field of healthcare, as other speakers have mentioned, is converging. So there is no more, hospital R&D over here, and then life sciences over there, and then tech as a broker or provider. I think that we see convergence as the new normal. We see the acceleration of R&D coming only when there are private-public partnerships, data collaborative type of partnerships that entail all those players. I had the slide on industry charting the new need for collaboration as what I see as the blueprint for new public-private partnerships. It just means that we need to be clear on purpose. So what is the collaboration really about, right? Because there are things that need to stay commercial and maybe outside the scope. So what is the purpose? What is the data, and how is the business model around the data, right? And what is the finality of the data use? When these things are clear, I think we can shape data collaboration and new partnerships.
Thank you very much. Interesting to hear your aspects on the Nordics, Elena, and I know you're working all over the world, connecting with the other colleagues of yours in other regions. You've been working a lot with roundtable discussions and Microsoft healthcare summits. How do you see the progress of your work here being pushed by those discussions and the participants that you have gathered? Do you feel that it's moving in the direction and in the tempo? Indeed, that might be a leading question. Tempo is always a question, but I'm interested in the work and your mission around that.
Yes, first of all, allow me to say a thank you for the work that you have done personally as a spokesperson, also for the Nordic Interoperability Initiative and for the work of the Nordic Interoperability Initiative. I think it has been acting as a challenger. The work that yourselves and all the colleagues around the Nordic Interoperability Initiative, the work that Mikko in Finland has done, they keep pushing the envelope of what we should have. Now, are people taking notice? I think yes. We have two issues. One issue is that the tools, the toolkits, right, are not fully ready. So every time, like with this cardiovascular data collaborative, we are really trying to put the new way of doing data collaboration clarified and together. So the more we can clarify the toolkits, the faster data collaboration and data sharing will move. So are we moving fast enough? The ambition is moving fast. The implementation is naturally slower. And there I need to be a realist. I would love to move faster. So I would really love to see the Nordics taking the next step of commitment to say, this is the way we're going to do it, because it's going to be significant enough for the world to take notice. There is no other region in the world that has the same benchmark in terms of excellence of healthcare. Everybody regards the Nordics in that way. So if you take the step, the world will notice.
Thank you very much, and for that push in a forward direction. And I think that's a good segue over to the next presentation, which will be given by Mikko Rotonen, who is the CIO of Helsinki University Hospital, and who has been working with the data lake and the potential around it, not just talking about it, but doing it in practice, which I guess will be a very sort of significant contribution to the next steps that we take in the Nordics. So with that, Mikko, you can share your presentation and
can you see my
take
presentation?
the word. Not yet, no.
Sorry. Can you hear me? Yes.
Yes, we can.
And then I just go to this one. Sorry. Can you see it now? Sorry, I shared the again.
No, there is no presentation.
Yeah, I just. Can you see it now?
Now I think it's coming. Yes, there it is. Thank you.
Okay,
please go ahead.
So welcome to the real world. Some figures about HUS. We are a large hospital in southern Finland and cover about 30% of inhabitants in Finland. And last year we have about 3 million patient visits and almost 800,000 different patients visiting our services. We have about 26,000 employees today, over 3,000 clinicians and 14,000 nurses. So that's our environment at the moment. And as a large hospital, it's lots of information, lots of data. So you understand that we are talking about big data. That's the whole story of that. 7 years ago, we started to think that, okay, how to do with the cloud technology. And we established a cloud strategy in 2014. We started with over 365 and Microsoft Azure platform services and our data and AI strategy 5 years ago. And also we started with precision medicine strategy 5 years ago. So we've been going that cloud direction the last 6 years. So it's pretty normal to us that all the new functionalities are mainly in the cloud environment. Few words about precision medicine, because this is one big strategy that we have. We have a new system, so it's fully automated process that we can have almost 50,000 genomic tests annually. So whole genomic analytics. And the workflow that we took to the real world and we are running it daily. It looks like this. There is lots of technology behind that. There is a VC platform system behind that. Also, American hospitals are using the same Kaiser Permanente. I mean, and then the technology so that we run mainly it's in Microsoft Azure platform, but part of that is working in Google Cloud. So it's possible to have multiple cloud service providers even in a single workflow, in our case in the genomics. So the only thing that we run on-prem is actually those sequencers. All the other things are in the cloud. So this is something that Bogi said, okay, where is the information? Are we allowed to use cloud in Denmark and all that things? Hey, come on, wake up. This is reality today. And we are all using now Teams, so it's not impossible to how you can't have it on your prem. So you have to be in the cloud in anyway. So there was certain reasons that we understand even 6 years ago that we will have a large data set. We understood that genomic is very large data set. We have to have good models to be able to have predictive analytics. We know the history, but you like to see the future. And of course, that means that you have to have lots of computing power and latest technologies available, which are not available in your on-prem data centers. So about security, of course, we are very, very worried about security issues. We know that entering the markets in Europe, I mean, medical device regulators, they say that, okay, you have to have ISO 9001 certificate. As a manufacturer, you need this 13485 certificate. And typically, you have 20001 certificate, but especially concerning the security, you have to have 27001 certificates, and that's what typically is missing from the hospital on-prem data centers. They don't have it. We don't have it. We will have it by the end of this year, but we will be the first public hospital in Finland having that certificate concerning security, data security especially. And of course, there are European requirements, GDPR. When you're using American service providers, you have privacy shield issues, and we are talking about high trust and encrypted data and all things like that. We have a case, Johnson & Johnson, large American company, asked us, okay, where is the data? Where is the data center? Of course, we said, okay, we are in Finland, but in this case, you will use our data lake, which is in the cloud. So this, what we asked from Microsoft. Microsoft, okay, your data centers are in Dublin and Amsterdam, and what kind of security certification Microsoft has? Okay, we said that they have all the needed, and we have those too, and we are pre-auditing the security certificate for us. So Microsoft said, okay, they are there somewhere inside the European borders. As you know, we also use Google, so Google said that, okay, this data center is in Hamina city, the direct address also ends on tier 1. So they said, okay, it's there. And they said, okay, we have all the needed security certificates. But what we did AVS, we are using also AVS. So that was strange. We don't tell you where are those data centers. But they said, okay, of course we have all the needed data security certificates, but as Boki said, we really don't know where is AVS data situated even inside the European borders. So perhaps we think about more carefully using AVS, but we know exactly that, for instance, GE is using AVS when they are developing their new patient monitors, and they have our data de-identified mode in the process. Or about a few words about data lake, and when we started this, it was 4 years ago, and we started with Citra. There was an Isaacus project, Isaacus Rotovius. It's not related to me. He lived in the 15th century. He's a bishop in Finland or in Sweden. He's a Swedish guy. So all the background is always Sweden. But in this case, we are in Finland, so that's our model of how we integrate all the EMR systems and all the systems that we use in real life to our data lake. So these EMR switches that we are used today, we use Uranus, which is our current system, and half of us is actually using Epic. So we know that we have to integrate the information to our data lake. Part of that is based on extract it's working every 5 minutes, and typically it's daily based integration, or it can be 10 minutes, whatever you like. There are lots of technologies. There's FHIR, there is extracts, there is HL7 integrations, and other things. So we have a big stack of different kind of systems that we are running in real world in hospital. Then we have Health Village concept for the digital twin, and that is also running 100% in a micro platform in a cloud. So it's a dynamic 365 technology there. And genomics part is there, mobile apps, whole stack of our Oracle EPR system, finance, material, human resources, your identification management, they are in the cloud. I don't know exactly where they are. I guess they are in Frankfurt or in Netherlands, probably, but they are inside the European borders. And you can imagine that there are lots of very secure information in this architecture. Okay, so we are an academic hospital. There is lots of going on different kind of research, and we support that very, very deeply. It's very important for us. We are part of Helsinki University Medical faculty, so that's the minimum we have to do, support research, medical research especially. And today, especially genomic is very important part of research. And that's the reason that we have the capability to do that from ourselves. How to be a manufacturer? This is an important question that in the end, we like to go to the commercial markets. Somebody has to be the manufacturer to be able to launch the service based on the CE marked product. And we have the capability to do AI products to the markets. And that means that we have certificate to give algorithms, artificial intelligence, machine learning, data analytics based on the information that we have in our organization. But that is not enough. What kind of challenges we have? We know that we have big data. Next question is typically, do you have enough qualified data for AI ML? Can you do the clinical validation based on that data? Should we have a benchmarking somewhere else? Do we know that the algorithm that we have done works also in Sweden, Norway, Denmark, and Iceland? Can we do that? Do we have a common data model? If you are a little afraid that should we share our information, should we do some kind of data synthesization? I mean, de-identification. What are the possibilities there? So we have a company in our campus area called Whale AI. These slides are from them. We know that GDPR applies especially high risk when you have a very sensitive data, you know the person or patient in our case. You can have pseudonymized data, so it's medium risk, but it's still under the GDPR. If we do some things about the data, we anonymize data, so it's low risk. But when we synthetic data from the same patient group or cohort, so you can do different kind of insights. It's near open data, what Elena told us. So is there technology to do this? Sure, there is. So this is a picture that how could we do in Nordic level in different Nordic countries. If we have sensitive data, we can anonymize that. We can have a common data pool there where is anonymized data. the other countries put it to the same place. We do the synthetic data generation here, and then we have in Nordic level, Nordic synthetic data lake, a sandbox to the companies to develop new services, develop new things, have new insights, and that's what we've been heading with now in HUS, that should we do this, we need some information from other countries also do the clinical validation to our CE marked algorithms, and that might be one solution to do this together, because together we are stronger compared that we do it alone.
Wow, I think I'm stunned with what you're presenting here, both in terms of what you have done in practice and how you see the ideas of moving forward. Quality management system around the data and the organization is, of course, of essence to be able to, or to be allowed to handle data like you've been doing. How much work would you say that has been to do? Do you think it's realistic that everyone can do what you have done here?
Well, it takes time, and of course it takes resources, but we could start a little bit more lighter way, and that means that we could extract a common data model and have it somewhere in secure cloud platform where we can enter the information and test and have new insights. So you don't need to have that large data lake that we've been building. It helps a lot. If you think about COVID-19, we didn't do not. We just do the reporting based on the information that we had in our data lake. We had a report panel for based on Microsoft BI, Power BI. So we just have a report based on the information that we have. We didn't get any or have in extra information. We had all that information. We just read it and put it to the reports. So that's the way that we can extract information, and that extracting common, perhaps OMO model should work in the beginning. But you have to be sure that the place where we have that information is somewhere, and you have to trust that it's in a secure place. And that's what I guess Microsoft is offering. They have, well, we've been using them for the last 4 years, and we are sure that they are more secure than compared to our own prem data center. And you have to prove that you are as good as they are.
And I see there's one question related to that from Michelle here. Any concerns regarding the Cloud Act?
Well, we see it more operation way, and in real life, you have to think that, okay, we have a problem. If we use, for instance, InterSystems database that has a problem, and they said that, okay, we have to have the information in our headquarters in Boston. So what can you do? Your laboratory system is not working. They have to fix it in somewhere. So you have to actually have a dump data set to the States and say, okay, do that. So it's more practical issue compared to the strategic issue. But of course, we follow the European Union rules and trust that they do their job well.
Thank you very much, Mikko. I think we can perhaps elaborate a bit more on that if that question should need more information from you or from others during the panel discussions later. Thank you again for a very interesting and very concrete presentation of what you've done. We have now done the sort of the future visions up to 2030, and we have been through some technology and visions around technology, and we're now moving into the data part of this seminar. And we will start that with the first ever presentation of the legal report that was published, I think it was a few days ago, Thursday, Friday, last week. I guess, no, sorry, it's Louise Rosenlund Nielsen. I'm sorry, I'm wrong. It's Data Saves Lives right now. I will not change the sequence of this meeting. Where you have been looking at what data is there right now and how can we make use of it in the best way. So with no further ado, Louise Rosenlund Nielsen, please go ahead with your presentation.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Peter. And hi, everyone. Let me just see if I can share my screen. So, works a bit slow here. Can you see it?
Yes, we can see it now.
Okay,
so it looks good.
Perfect.
We can see you as well, and we can hear you.
And hear me. Great. So
we're
hi,
now seeing
everyone.
The note, the part with your speaking notes as well. If you want to.
How do I hide these? Oh, sorry about that.
På skjerminnstillinger så kan du bytte.
Ja, hvor gør jeg det henne?
Helt øverst. Der, ja. Bytt om.
Sådan der. Var det bedre?
Nej, det skjedde ikke noe nå.
Nå, den byttede rundt med mig. Sorry about that, everyone.
No problem.
Let me just try again and I can hide my notes.
Sure.
Like.
While you're working with the technology, we're very pleased to see that there are several initiatives in the Nordics working with how to share data, how to make them available. And the Nordic Interoperability Project is one out of many forces working in the same direction, like you mentioned, Elena. Things are converging. So it's been very good to get in touch with you, Louisa, and your team. And I see that you have had discussions during the fall and also now during the spring. So it's
yes, thank you. And even though I couldn't really hide my process line, I think you should be able only to see my presentation now, right?
No, there is no presentation right now. So you should try again.
No? Still not? Perhaps, Anders, you could, I think I sent you my presentation. I don't know if you will be able to put it on the screen. I'm not sure why it's not working.
Anders, are you there to put her presentation on? Yeah.
If you see my screen now, it should be.
Yes, we see it.
Okay, great. And you only see me now, right?
Yeah.
My face, great. Okay, yeah. Sorry everyone. Hello, my name is Louise, and I come from a public-private partnership in Denmark called Data Save Lives that works to improve the use of health data in Denmark. And thanks for inviting me today to this seminar, where I will be presenting a project that we did last year last fall with a group of Nordic partners in collaboration with Nordic Innovation to kickstart and create awareness around Nordic health data and common solution as well. And as already mentioned, I mean, we need everyone can agree that we need a Nordic healthcare data platform, and for our point of view, someone must take on like this practical role, which is what we also focus on and have been focused on with this project. because at least in my point of view, the Nordics have or are in the process of developing 3 major solutions. One of them being these entry points, where I think Finland is great ahead with their FinData project, and also these data lakes that were just presented. And what I'm gonna talk about to you today is a project that we did around metadata catalogs or data maps. Next slide, please. So, as already mentioned, we have some world-class Nordic data. We are second to none, and we hold a unique position within the health data that exceeds that in other countries, as already mentioned, which gives us quite an international competitive advantage. At least not due to the fact that we have this high quality data that goes back decades, and we have this PI number on this data, and also because we have our data is quite unbiased due to universal healthcare systems. In addition to that, and as I think the next presentation will tell a little bit more about the legislative part, we have quite similar frameworks there. We share, the Nordic values, as Bogi mentioned, and then we have a long tradition for government cooperation, and there's a political will right now to do something on this agenda. Next slide, please. So this is why in the autumn of 2019, we joined forces with Nordic Innovation, the Norwegian Directorate of eHealth, Citra, the Finnish Institute for Health and Welfare, and SweLife to do this small-scale project, but we are, of course, quite ambitious in order to raise awareness of Nordic health data and basically kickstart collaboration across the Nordics. Next slide, please. Because as we see it, one of the challenges is that we have a lot of different databases, and in Denmark we have actually more than 160, which makes the data very fragmented and stored in different silos. So researchers use enormous time to find the data, and these kind of data maps that has been developed in the Nordic countries is an innovative solution in our point of view to that challenge, because not only do they provide a quick overview of the metadata or data about data, it also makes it easy to see where the data is located. So not only for Denmark, Denmark has developed this kind of prototype, but also for the other Nordic countries. As you can see, the vision for this specific collaboration is to kind of try to unify the metadata across the Nordic countries, and create an overview and data access to a Nordic cohort without, of course, jeopardizing the privacy concern. And that is why this collaboration focused on launching, first of all, a Nordic metadata landing page and a digital campaign to raise awareness to the key stakeholders out there that the solution actually exists. And also we decided to invite a group of stakeholders for an event in Denmark last year that focused on really mapping data in the Nordics to showcase what the solution can be used for, and also what value they create for researchers, industry, and government. Next slide, please. And because there is a common kind of will from the Nordic countries that we all want to scale this solution, we all find it valuable, and to create more awareness of its existence. The initiative last year was targeted potential sponsors of these maps, but of course also the primary users of a solution like this. Next slide. And one of the key deliverables were launching a kind of a digital campaign and landing page, as I mentioned, with the aim to showcase these health data maps and what they can be used for through some cases and videos. And I think if you are able to click, I can also send you a link actually to the landing page. You can click around, but basically it's kind of intuitive. There are a few cases with statements from, the research perspective, the hospital perspective, and different kind of perspectives on what value these solutions create. Next slide, please. And if you can start the video, it will more or less explain, what the symposium we did last year as part of this collaboration was all about. I don't know, are you able to click on it, Anders? Yeah. Are there any sound? Can you get some sound?
I think the sound actually is just coming up in under speakers. It's not for the. It will not be presented for the whole.
The whole group.
I got it.
Oh, that's a shame.
But we could send it anyway because it's texted, so it's possible to see the text at least.
Yeah.
I can confirm the sound was really nice.
Okay, that's good. I think I sent you a link for our landing page of the Nordic data maps, and in that landing page you'll also find the video, hopefully with sound. So perhaps you could take the time to see it afterwards. But at least we had next slide, please. Thank you. We had 110 participants at the symposium, both from Denmark and from Finland and Norway and Sweden. And as you can see from our targets and results, of course, it was very much about creating awareness of the existence of the data maps and you know, the metadata solutions in general. And as you can see, when evaluating the project on the targets, it overperformed on almost all dimensions. And the fact that we managed to reach the high targets within a relatively small target group, because the target group was quite narrow, for us proves the huge interest that exists for Nordic health data. So that's very positive. Next slide, please. So what are the learnings and recommendations going forward, or that we took from this event, is that timing is crucial. And in our point of view, we need to kind of enable environments that focus on building up common skills and experiences, as you know, other presenters has also mentioned today. So from where we see it, I mean, a phase one should really be standardization and interoperability activities. We need to develop, first of all, a common technical and semantical skill set across the Nordics. So we need a standardized and common data language, so to speak, which the Nordic Data Commons are quite good example of. So we need this infrastructure first and foremost, and of course they should be in line with the FAIR principles, meaning that the data meets the standards of findability, accessibility, interoperability, and reusability, which all the Nordic countries are more or less integrating or adopting these principles in the data approach, and we work in the same way. It's a rather big topic in itself, so I will not go into further details with it here. And then from our belief that a phase two should be to develop kind of a common administrative or clinical language. And then phase three should focus really on the financial and political readiness, and also the legal issue when it comes to sharing data. So we are very thrilled about and very curious about the legal report that we are going to hear more about in a minute. I think that's really exciting and good news. So for us, I mean, if the first is not coordinated and is in place, I think we can forget about like machine-based metadata and data collaboration on a broader level than more diagnose-specific research that has been going on for years and is still going on now. Next slide, please. So what's next? We would really love to, because now we have a common actually landing page where all of the Nordic countries' data maps are available and linked. You can click on it. And we would love to further develop this more with, for example, best practice cases of all research and innovation projects in the Nordics. So really expand this landing page and kind of use it like a catalog. For example, with both turned down and approved applications, but also with other content that illustrates the value and usability of metadata solutions. And then I've listed a whole other things that we would like to do. And of course, we would like to do that in collaboration with you guys, because we see a lot of potential in Nordic collaboration around health data. Next slide. That's all for me.
Thank you very much. I think what the work you have been doing jacks 100% into what we all want to achieve and what has been the theme of today. I mean, if we could map that data and perhaps gather underneath the data lake where these can be available for swift extraction and utilization within research. So it's very interesting to see where you've been working and how good it matches with what I think everyone in this meeting want to achieve. I'm a bit, I would like to allow for a couple of questions, but it seems that we are a little bit late in the agenda. There will be time after for questions to you, Louise.
Yes.
So if that's okay, I think we'll just move on to to the presentation about the Nordic legal report, which I introduced previously and will not spend more time on that introduction. And I give the word to you, Bjørn Hofstad and Hanne Gulbrandsen from Deloitte, who has done this work on behalf of Nordic Innovation. Go ahead, please. There's no sound, just to make you aware of that.
Okay, can you hear us now?
Yes, we can. Very good.
And you may also see us. Do you see the presentation?
Yes.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you for this invitation and for your initiatives and giving us the opportunity to participate in this exciting event, and maybe we should say the journey you are heading for. We were invited here to give you a short heads up on our report on the bridging the Nordic data. And who are we? Today we are, it's Hanne Gulbrandsen and myself. Hanne was a project lead, and I'm sure she will give a short introduction of herself later on. I was the lead partner on this report, and I've been working with Deloitte since 2007 and started my career working with privacy in the Norwegian Data Inspectorate, also together with Hanne. This is our Nordic team who has all contributed to this report. And this is also one of the reasons that I feel very proud working with Deloitte, that we could set up a team like this and work cross-border on such exciting project that we have been working with for the last month. The agenda today from our side is a short background and also a little bit about the general framework and our findings in the report. So the 15 minutes or so is not very much time for such a report, but in a way, we will try to at least give you some taste of it. The background has already been introduced from the other speakers, but we know that Nordic Innovation's vision is that by 2030, the Nordics will be the most sustainable and integrated health region in the world, which is a kind of bold ambitions, and we like it. Providing the best possible personal health care for all its citizens. To reach this vision, health data will play a crucial role. And to use the health data in this vision, access to the data is also a key part, and it has to be balanced up towards the privacy regulations and privacy in general. Health data can be used to improve quality of life in the Nordic region and develop new solutions and business opportunities. And in January 2018, you in the Nordic Innovation launched the program Health, Democracy and Quality for Life. And there are 4 action areas in this program. And the first action area and the focus of our report is called Bridging the Nordic Data Initiative. The initiative aims at increasing innovation in public and private sectors and increasing possibilities for utilization of health data across the Nordic borders. As part of this initiative, Nordic Innovation sent an invitation for tender in October 2019, seeking to purchase an overview of main obstacles and practices within the field of health data in the Nordic region. We in Deloitte Legal was selected as a supplier of this assignment, and in the light of the COVID-19 pandemic, we have all witnessed for the final last weeks or month, the timing could probably not been better. A few key definitions for the report and these presentations is personal data and health data. And this is two definitions that we all have to be very clear to us. And what is personal data? Personal data is defined in GDPR Article 4 and covers inter alia any information that could be related to an identified or identifiable natural person, the data subject. The term personal data is generally interpreted broadly. That means that all kind of data or substance or information that could be related to a physical person is regarded as a personal data. If we look at the health data is a so-called special categories of data in the terms of GDPR. And GDPR defines health data in a kind of broadly way as well as the same goes with personal data, and includes any personal data revealing information about a person's health or health status regardless of whether the data has been collected from, such as a healthcare sector, wearables, or social media. For example, if an innovator uses personal data related to the physical or mental health of a natural person, the processing includes health data. Compared to other types of personal data, health data is subject to more strict regulation, which is also notable in these settings. As technology develops, the definition of health data continuously change. Thus, assembly information Spotify collects about individuals, for example, can be regarded as health data in the long run on the future. So there has been a lot of talk of data and health data here, and again, the context and the definition is quite usual. There are several practical issues in this matter, but our task was to look at legal obstacles. What does the law says when it comes to processing of personal data and health data in this regard? And I think I should leave the words over to Hanne to take this forward when it comes to our major findings in the report and in our work.
Thank you, Björn. As Björn said, so is health data is supposed to be interpreted broadly. But the main take on our report was secondary use of such data for innovation purposes. And I think that it's important because when you talk about secondary use, then you talk about health data, which is originally collected from the healthcare sector, for instance. And to understand why is this separation between primary use and secondary use is important, I need you to go quickly through the privacy principles. So if you are going to use health data or other personal data, and then we don't, as Mikko said, we don't mean synthetic data or anonymous data. This is data that is possible to link to a person, even though the link is difficult. It's the GDPR will apply because it is possible in some instances. Then you need to follow like 7 data principles. And in this aspect, and because we don't have so much time, we will focus on the principle of lawfulness and purpose limitation. And regarding the principle of lawfulness, it means that if you're going to process, as the term is in the GDPR, personal data or health data, you need a legal basis. And processing is every use that you can think of, like alignment and analyzing, disclosure, and sort of using wearables or using artificial intelligence. Storage is processing when it comes to GDPR. And another important principle is the purpose limitation. You are, as an outset, only allowed to use personal data for a specific purpose. And if you are thinking about using the personal data for another purpose, then you need a legal basis. So then you're back to like the white circle concerning lawfulness. And just to show it to you in another with another figure, in this context, and what we have assessed that primary use are like health data that are processed and collected to provide health care. And if you want to use that health data, and here I've labeled it healthcare data to make it clear that is not every health data as regarded in the GDPR, then for another purpose than the provision of healthcare, then you need the legal basis as I told you about. And the legal basis could be consent. And consent is well known from the research perspective, and it's useful legal basis, but it also have challenges. Because healthcare data mostly are object to the professional or covered by the professional secrecy, the consent from the individual also need to waive the professional secrecy. Or if you want to use use the personal data for another purpose, they also have to address the professional secrecy. And in the GDPR, you have alternative legal basis. You have consent as it's all mostly regarded as like the main legal basis, but you also have the possibility to process health data if it's in the vital interest of the data subject. And you also may process health data if there are substantial public interests. But even though GDPR provides for these different legal bases, mostly you need an additional, or what you call it, a supplementary legal basis laid down in law, allowing processing or access to health data for a specific purpose. And our main findings is, if you look at innovation and development as a specific purpose, you have a lack of regulation that address that surface and purpose as such. This is especially evident in the Norwegian legislation, when you are allowed to access and use health data from the healthcare sector for research, for health analysis, for quality monitoring, for statistics, quality assurance, and such. But the word innovation or the word development are not mentioned in the legislation at the moment. Of course, it's possible. Innovation is also a broad term. Innovation and development, they'll often include or be a part of a research project, or an innovation project may entail health analysis. But you also will have innovation projects that you mainly will label innovation, and that makes it difficult or a really challenging practice to assess whether you have access or not. So this is, I think for us, I worked a lot with research and I thought, okay, but for your research, you will have access. And you, as you mentioned, this report on Nordic Commons showcase that you have possibilities for research purposes, but there are also challenges. I think you, in a way, can copy those challenges for innovation and development, but also add the fact that innovation and development as such is not mentioned in the legislation. There are just look at the time. That is the main finding, and this main finding will make it even harder because of the problems that mentioned of the earlier speakers. We have this decentralized information structure. And if you want to collect and use health data from different sources, not only different 160 sources in Denmark, for instance, but also in Finland, in Norway, and in Iceland, Sweden, and so on, those sources are mostly regulated in different acts. You have GDPR as the legislation that is over the specific legislation, but still you might have one separate act regulating use of data collected for statistics Norway, one regulation specific for cancer registries and such. And that also means, because there are different acts and different regulations, there are different authorities that assess whether you will get access or not. These problems are also well known from the research, the world of research, but the same will be for innovators. And we also see that some of the legislation requires that you actually have a research aspect in your project, or you need to be have academic background, or you have to be connected to an academic institution to get access. And you have the aspect with the decentralized information structures means that you might need permits, and the permits are different. If you're in the world of research, you need specific research permits, but you also need to apply for access to data as such. So even though you need to get a permit from, for instance, an ethics committee, you also need to apply to the data holder or the data controller, as GDPR calls it. And add-on is, like everyone else has mentioned, is the lack of standardization and interoperability. And that's maybe not a legal obstacle, but it's the legislation could help with require the data controllers to use certain standards to get the Nordic region more harmonized, both in legal aspect and the technical aspect as such. Finland is an exception in this context, and they have actually solved some of the problems by adopting the Act on Secondary Use of Health Data. And in short, this means that every secondary use of health data that is allowed is regulated in the same act, instead of having exemptions for research and health analysis in 10 different acts, which is the case in Norway. And they have also chosen to regulate the use of health data for innovation and development as a purpose as such. So they have divided research and health analysis and innovation and development. And we think that that's an interesting move, and we think it shows that it is important, and it's useful to have this as a separate purpose when you make regulations and acts. And they also chosen to make thin data like a one-stop shop or a single point of contact. So if you need a data permit or other kind of permit to both access and analyze data, you can apply to one authority. But all this is done in one act, and there are still challenges here because for innovation and development, the innovators or the one that applies for access to data will only get access to aggregated data. So for us, it was really interesting to listen to Mikko and his last slide about the different kind of data which you actually can use. And if you see the possibilities here, of course you have consent, which will help you in every aspect. If as a legal basis, if you are able to ask the data subject about if you're allowed to use the data in different aspects, concept is perfectly fine, and it will help you. It will also waive the professional secrecy. But when it comes to anonymization or synthetic data, then you will be outside the GDPR, and it will be if, of course, it's difficult to make synthetic data sets, but if you're the Nordics are able to make synthetic data sets on one level, it will be really helpful. Alternative legal basis is also set up as a possibility because innovation projects could be labeled or be covered of the existing alternative legal bases in different acts, but also the Norwegian government, the Nordic governments could incorporate and harmonize their alternative legal bases. When it comes to GDPR, which applies in most of the Nordics, or the principles at least applies also in the in Faroe Islands and Greenland, which are not covered by the GDPR, one are able to give legal basis to innovation and development and use that as a starting point. It's a small stepping stone to what you are where you're heading, but I think it's really important that you start there first. Yeah, I don't think I have more time.
Oh, I guess you're out of time. It was important, I think, that you got to present this with the information that you have. We have a very interested audience, and we have been waiting for such a report and for these reflections for years, I would say. So what I would like to do now is that we continue with the presentations of the showcase while people prepare questions for you. Are you available for questions in about 12-15 minutes?
Yep.
Yes. Very good. And just to make sure that we get through that and we can have some discussions afterwards, I will give the word now to Henrik Wilander, who has been working in the Nordic Interoperability Project, and to start the presentation now of the Nordic Interoperability Showcase. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Petter. So just to start off saying that this showcase was initially intended for a live audience at HIMSS Orlando, but unfortunately we were not able to present it there. So now we've moved into a more digital format and are going to record this showcase instead, so we can spread the word more efficiently and on the different platforms. So that will be to come. So without further ado, me and James Coe will start the showcase. James.
James on mute, perhaps?
Yeah, that always helps. So I think as been really very well highlighted by a great series of presentations highlighted earlier, Nordic healthcare is good, but it's not sustainable. The Nordic countries are enjoying really some of the best health statistics in the world and are rated highly by the WHO and similar organizations, but they also share some very real challenges. Population numbers, age distribution, society have all changed dramatically, and I think whilst technology and its adoption have rapidly developed, the basic structure of universal healthcare has remained virtually unchanged since 1945. What worked for society yesterday isn't going to be the solution for tomorrow. As we know, again, there is a huge imbalance in spending, with only 0.3% of GDP used for preventive care. That's what keeps us healthy and aims to keep us outside of the system. As already highlighted, the aspiration should be to bring these numbers more in balance, the 5-5 aspiration. So where do we start? A key element to a better future healthcare system is improved patient data and access to it, and we've heard a lot about that over the course of the seminar. In today's system, most patient data is locked up and stored away in the healthcare system on the patient's behalf, hence the large orange circle. And even though we are more health focused and collecting loads of health-related data through apps, digital devices and so on, the system doesn't really utilize this, if it even collects it at all. This shows the system's out of balance and we need for a new approach. We need a more balanced approach where the data is in the center. The individual is being more involved in our own care and well-being, and where the data is flowing back and forth between the individual and the system to better promote and reward preventive care. It is this thinking that is supported by the vision of the Nordic Council of Ministers that by 2030, the Nordic region will become the most sustainable and integrated health region in the world. And it is this motivation that supports us, the Nordic Interoperability Project, and its supportive and growing base of partners. We want to be part of making this happen, and we want to do that by telling the story of Alva. Alva is the persona based on Clara that lives in the now, but through whom we can tell a version of the future. How can we help the system evolve? And how can the data be enriched, utilized, and made more freely available?
So we meet Alva in a not too distant future, where there's already been a gradual increase in available data. In the first chapter of our showcase, we look at the common Nordic data lake that has been established as the foundation for innovation and research. The second chapter covers the possibilities to better assist patients in their everyday life. And in the third and last chapter, we explore the potential for close collaboration between patients, healthcare, and researchers. Looking at the reports of today, we've done our homework and put together the components used in this showcase. They are live today, built on existing technology and powered by the contributing industry partners. We don't say that this is the solution for interoperability. It's rather an example, and we welcome you all to develop and further enhance this ecosystem together. So to start off, the Nordic Data Lake holds multiple types of data with contributions from citizens, care organizations, and researchers from all Nordic countries. This fuels cross-border collaboration in several specific Nordic centers for innovation and research. And researchers and other partners for innovation consume and utilize data based on patient consent. And because Alva trusts the ecosystem, she consents to sharing data for secondary use in exchange for services based on the fair data economy concept by IHAN. So the data lake is made possible by a set of standardized processes agreed on a Nordic level containing steps from generating to consumption of data. Under the surface, data is being prepared, stored, and finally enriched by machine learning and AI models. So for Alva, this means that her data is made available for both herself and others to use. The data generated in EHR solutions are connected to the data lake, and preparation of the data involves mapping based on FHIR, and after being stored, the data is accessible from a graphical user interface in the data lake. With the consent from Alva, the data is enriched and later consumed and utilized. Through the consent platform, Alva can manage her given consents and follow the data made available and who is using it also.
As we all know, change is the only real constant in the healthcare industry, and that the healthcare data is the very fabric of which smart and, importantly, evidence-based decisions are made. It's the bringing together of the many cohorts of that data that, with cognitive and machine learning capabilities, will support the delivery of new business models, new insights, and a leap forwards in quality of enormous dimensions. The data is already here. Now's the time to support its better access, its enrichment, and to better leverage the value it represents, supporting preventive care and improving how Alva manages her disease.
So in this part of the story, Alva has just finished her biannual retina scan at the hospital, and the generated images are shared to the data lake. Since she has consented to automated processing and assistance by AI models, she benefits from existing research relevant to her current situation. Unfortunately, an anomaly is detected, which triggers her health bot. And with the bot's assistance, she determines that she needs to get in contact with the clinician. A handover is made to her regular nurse using Teams, and Alva also can make appointments together with the nurse with her physician. She feels safe and gets assistance effectively based on her current situation.
Bringing the patient closer to enabling research. Citizen participation is regarded as central to the promotion of sustainable health and healthcare. Participation efforts have two primary drivers. The first is the promotion of sustainable health and healthcare, grounded in a sound, publicly accessible evidence base. This is where the data within the data lake provides the basis for validated clinical support and innovation. The second is the conviction that involvement is intrinsically valuable, given its commitment and promoting interests of all citizens, supporting personalized and evidence-based care for all of us.
So moving on to the last chapter of the story, we meet Peter. He's 8 years old, he lives in Finland, and just like his cousin Alva, he is diagnosed with diabetes type 1. Lately, he's been complaining about deteriorating vision and visits his pediatrician together with his parents. He's diagnosed with optic atrophy, and thanks to research made on Nordic data, the pediatrician receives assistance from a clinical decision support application in the EHR solution. When the new diagnosis is registered, the CDS app is triggered and a recommendation is issued to conduct a genetic analysis. This shows that Peter suffers from a rare disease called Wolfram syndrome. Finding and diagnosing rare diseases can normally take up to 5 years, wasting resources and bringing frustration to Peter, his family, and also the physicians in contact with Peter. Peter's parents are eager to find out more about ongoing research and consents to making his data available for secondary use, which gives researchers the possibility to actively reach out and seek specific participation from Peter. With Peter's contribution, researchers now get access to valuable insights on his rare condition and can follow his progress more closely, making him part of finding future solutions and help other patients and physicians still searching for a correct rare diagnosis.
Thanks, Henrik. Much needs to change for the 21st century to digital citizen to serve as a model for future healthcare delivery. For one, there'll need to be a change in mindset to accept technology and its advances and the available input from intelligent services. Regulatory pressures, new technologies, and patient expectations are also playing their part, but nothing happens until someone takes the first steps. And that's what we've done here. We're not saying that this is the solution for data sharing in the Nordics, but it is a solution. And we welcome any input from you, the wider healthcare IT ecosystem, to develop this showcase and to further the solution. Join us, contribute to the community, and be part of making, as the title says, the Nordics the most integrated health region in the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and applaud to Henrik and James. And thank you very much to all the contributors that you see.